Hello everyone, welcome to the Oxford Martin School and thank you very much for giving up your lunch break to come and hear this fascinating talk. So we're really glad to welcome Professor Tien Ming Lee to the Oxford Martin School. He's spending a bit of time working with us at the Oxford Martin programme in the illegal wildlife trade in the zoology department, and he's agreed to give a talk while he's here. So he's a visiting fellow on the Oxford Martin programme and a trained conservation scientist. He completed his PhD at the University of California in San Diego and 2 fellowships from Columbia and Yale universities and also from Princeton. In 2017, he moved to China to start a prestigious professorship position at the Department of Ecology and Evolution in the School of Life Sciences in Sun Yat-sen University. And he's building a really exciting research team that's taking new interdisciplinary approaches to addressing the illegal wildlife trade and sustainability issues in general in China. So we're really looking forward to hearing Ming's talk, but before we do, I've just got to tell you that the lecture is being filmed and live webcast, and so watch what you say. So, yes, welcome, Ming.
Can people hear me? Good. So thank you to EJ for that kind introduction. Thanks EJ for reminding us to watch what we say, because I'm really good at it. I have to be. So I would just, like EJ made a really good introduction of my background. You can call me Ming, and I'm currently at the Swenson University. And I think what I want to say today, I hope that I wouldn't actually offend anyone, because I think being in so many places from so many different backgrounds and stuff, I tend to sort of get people, nationality, whatever mixed up. So if I offend you, I apologize in advance. I know it's recorded. And I'm sure, someone will be looking at it back home. So this is one of the most interesting about China and moving there. And I want to bring you through my talk, which is really, tackling the illegal wildlife trade in the epicenter of China. So you'll be wondering, where is this epicenter? Well, I'll just give you the answer way ahead. So it's really where I work, which is in Guangzhou, and I'll tell you why it is the epicenter. Let me start with this slide, and I think it's a really, really important slide, and really why I started this research on IWT, like big time. So, EJ and I, we go way back, like 2017. I think she did a really smart thing where she obviously get this IWT program under the Oxford Martin School. And then she set up a network of people who are interested in working on illegal wildlife trade. And when I got my position, I immediately signed up, because it's what I want to do, right? I want to network with everybody else. And then next thing I know, EJ sent me an email say, I'm from, it's not a very long email as usual. You don't get very long emails from EJs anyway. I'm from this. I have a postdoc, Amy Hensley, who's right here. She's working on Project IUCN. And then with a Chinese agency, governmental agency involved, I was like, I'm in, count me in. So it's that kind of opportunity that, most of us actually in academia, especially in China, would like to do all the time, because you want to engage the higher authorities from the get-go. And this is really what I think our project with the SFGA and IUCN is accomplishing. And so far, so good. So it's been about a year now, so we are making good progress. So, following which, after I signed up, I got invited to this symposium, the very first symposium organized by EJ's group over at Oxford. And I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, St. Catherine's College, right? I'm trying to go to all colleges in Oxford. And so I think they did a really interesting thing where, for the first time I see something like this. At least for wildlife trade, they start mapping out, getting like professional artists, professional, somebody who really likes to draw, draws very well, and then, starts to draw all the topics at this, what I call one of the first symposium on legal wildlife trade ever. And it's the first time I also meet my fellow colleagues. So it was really good to actually see like what goes on in a symposium in just one photo, one picture. Okay, so keywords, diagrams and all that. So it was really good. Then last October, I brought my team with a couple of students there, including Anita, who is also here visiting with me because she does all the work. And then we have a representative from SFA, Rick, and then Mr. Chu here, and then you have Brendan, and then you have me, Amy, EJ, and Mike, and of course Dave, the team. And what we do is we really sort of looked at the impact of black bear farming in China with regards to the wild bear population in China. So this is a joint project, so which is super interesting because it's not that easy to do joint product on that kind of topic with the Chinese government. So that's a big step forward. So we had fun last October, following which we had this workshop jointly ran, Amy and I, in the second symposium, Legal Wildlife Trade, that was conducted in London, where, what we really want to do is, we want people to think that, it's possible to work on IWT issue, legal wildlife trade issue in China. So we got a workshop, and then we basically tell them, nicely, this is probably how you should go about doing it. And so really, really very basic things. And I think everybody learned a lot, and I thought it was very well attended. So when people have to stand, it's well attended. And then, of course, next thing you know, back to back, we went to London to attend the 4th London conference. And this is probably the last one. And the global meeting. And I thought the 3 goals in this theme, or the 3 themes in this October Illegal Wildlife Trade Conference was really interesting, especially the fact that, the 3rd one right here is, closing markets for illegally traded wildlife products, building on the Chinese ivory trade ban, which everybody knows happened, right? Last January 2018, right? The first major thing that China actually did. Closing their domestic market. So I'm obviously, I'm not going to claim anything, but, I was involved in the initial process of really sort of like going about, should we do this? How should we do this? Who's going to get affected? What the economics, what the numbers are. So we were doing that way back in, WCS was leading it along with Esther over at Beijing Normal University in China, and we were sort of doing evaluation, really looking at the economics of ivory, really looking at what kind of livelihood in China, especially in the carving industry, how they're affected. Because really, that's one of the main worry. So that's really what we've been tasked to do, and the interaction with fellow people from academia, from NGO, from government agencies in China. So Chinese. Well, I want to say Chinese. I'm not Chinese person during that meeting, but sort of like a Chinese-only meeting, internal meeting. So that was very revealing, and that's when I actually learned a lot about how things actually work in China. So obviously, the news was well received, applauded all over the world, and then there is this part. Where I thought it was really good, where we had one of the Deputy Director General, Dr. Zhou, from the SFGA, which is really the agency in China that governs any of the natural resources, many of the natural resources management. So she was on the stage and she sort of gave a breakdown of actually what China is doing or has done in terms of combating the illegal wildlife trade, and I thought it was very well said, and But she seems to be the only Chinese person that's saying anything during that conference. So she's part of the Chinese delegate. So in my mind, along with us, a few others, we were thinking, what else can we do? What else can we do in China to support this global initiative? So right after I came back from London, I was invited to the Forestry Police College, the one and only Forestry Police College in Nanjing, to give a talk, really talking about, what they can learn from this meeting. So that's the start. And of course, what we further did was that they invited us to write it up so that they can publish it in the Chinese language so that, everybody else can read, right? So I think that was a very, very good start. And you can see that they really want to do something about it. We really want to do something about it. So this is really the team that were there. So I'm not going to say too much, except that, this is not very well represented in terms from people from China. That's all I can say for 2018, which is kind of interesting because China has so many people and such a big issue, but yet, we don't see too many of them at such an important meeting like that. I think that says a lot, right? So that's something that I sort of want to, we'll slowly go through that. So instead of words and all that thing, I put logos, and just really, sort of go through. EJ already sort of introduced a little bit of my academic background, but I also work with C4, WCS, I4, Gallup, and of course I was funded by a lot of agencies, US, UK, and obviously some international ones. Of course, thankfully I had also time to publish a lot, which is nice because it always makes you competitive. But then I couldn't get a job, which is the situation in US at that time. So at the end of the 2 postdocs, I was like, I really need a job. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll just go out and work. So I work in the industry as a data scientist, which is normally the fallback plan. If you're really, really good with data, you can have a job, okay? So this is take-home message. But around that time, I got interested in the possibility of actually working in China. So thankfully, went for an interview at the national level, got a really good position, picked where I want to go, so I ended up in Swansea University. So Swansea University, as EJ had already mentioned, is one of the, it has a top ecology evolution program in the last 10 years in China. And we're very, very proud of that. And we also have one of the only few Charles Darwin busts, which is right outside our department. So that's good. So take a step back. Before I moved, I was living in New York City. This is a beautiful Central Park. This is Manhattan. I was there, life's good, got the job. Right when I got the job, someone came into power, and then everybody went to march. We've never marched so much. We were marching. These are my kids, by the way. And we're marching for science. This is one of the things that we felt very strongly for. And I think we're still marching. People are still marching. So that's really not a good sign. So bring back to how I got acquainted with China. So right about 1980s, when I was a young boy. So this is me. And it's my grandfather, my granduncle. So I was fortunate to be able to go back with them to our ancestral village. If anybody says that they're Chinese ethnically, at some point in time, in their lineage, they are from China. So we were able to sort of trace back to our ancestral village and then visit there. The situation is this, right? It's about 30 years ago. Bicycles are everywhere. It's a huge problem on the streets, okay? And then it was banned. All right, this is in the 92s. And then 40 years later, they're back, okay? But they're creating a huge problem also. Right? One that actually is currently a huge mess. I don't know the situation here, but in China, you can imagine. It's very, very bad, as in, where the bikes are parked and all that. So there's a lot of organizational issue, a lot of governance issue. what that reminds me all the time is that this is a country that's so large. And I think it's a big problem. Like, how do you manage 1.3 billion people? It's very hard. It's very, very hard. So I now live in this city, Guangzhou, which is really the epicenter of illegal wildlife trade in China. As you can see, this is nothing like 20 years ago. And this is the famous Canton Tower. And then where the Canton Tower is where the Pearl River is, right behind there. And this city, urban population is about 11 million people. Okay? 11 million, all right? And the Guangzhou metro area is about 25 million. Okay? So that's a lot of people. All right? UK has 60, right? So that tells you the magnitude. In terms of its GDP, right? We're talking about Guangzhou right here, okay? The actual number doesn't really matter, but it's got the size of GDP of Switzerland. The city Guangzhou has the size of the GDP, and this is 2016, data from 2016, okay? It's growing. And as a region, so Guangzhou is part of the Pearl River Delta, which probably some of you might know, yeah? And that includes Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Hong Kong, Foshan, Dongguan, as well as Macau. And it's about 1.89 trillion, that's yuan. But it's the size of Korea in its economy. So it's huge, it's massive. That also means that, but the worrying thing is actually that, not only are there a lot of people, but they're also getting richer. And they can spend more, right? And sometimes, it's very hard to take away old habits, right? So habits that they used to have, including consuming wildlife, for instance, becomes an issue, or buying wildlife products becomes an issue. So it's something that is sort of like, not that easy to fight. At least where I'm seeing from, where I'm looking from. So in 2030, and this is a projection done by the Oxford Economics, yeah, we can see that Guangzhou, Guangdong here will have, as a city, will have a higher GDP than London. Okay, it's about 10 years' time, roughly about 10 years' time. So you can see the number of Chinese cities that's going to go up, and up. Okay, so this magnitude is going to be just immense. Well, change it up a little bit, yeah. Food. Everybody loves to eat. My family, we love to eat so much, which is why we cannot move to the north. We can only go to the south where the food is the best, in my opinion. There's a lot of dim sum. Everybody knows dim sum, right? Yeah? But I don't know if everybody knows the other fact, that Cantonese eat everything. Yeah? Anita is nodding her head, yeah? Anita is a Cantonese. Cantonese eat everything. Well, and then, you get this lady here, Amanda, who's a journalist, and then she basically sort of like, I guess, paraphrase this thing. Cantonese will eat anything in the sky but airplanes, so they eat all birds. Anything in the sea but marines, a lot of marine stuff, anything with 4 legs but the table. That's, as far as I know, and I've asked every single Chinese person that I met who's not from Canton, not from Guangzhou or Guangdong, and they will tell you this is true. Like everybody knows that Cantonese eat everything. So it's a huge problem. The culture is a huge problem. So what can we do about that? Well, this is a global map of really, it's a map that shows you, little icons here are the animal icons of some of the groups like primates, parrots, the cats, as well as elephant, the ivory here. And the color here tells you, the orange here tells you what they are bringing in or importing, and then the turquoise color tells you what they are sending out, what they're exporting. In general, you can see, yeah, something that sort of strikes out immediately is that if you focus China, which is right here, China has got, right here, China has got about, some coming in and some going out, but it's considered a big market, or it's drawing in all, so it's demand is pretty high. But in general, we can see that Africa, South America, as well as Southeast Asia here, they're all turquoise, so it means they're a major exporting region. So where do they go? They go to Europe, US, Canada, as well as China. Okay, and this is just based on the endangered species, and this is based on CITES data. This is quite old now, I think, but I don't think the situation is changing very much. Okay, maybe what's being exported changes, maybe, and I think it will. But in general, the trend remains pretty similar. And we use, in China, we use the wildlife products in traditional Chinese medicine, which, it's the alternative medicine, and it's really, really big in China, as Amy will tell you. And of course, in addition to that, thousands of years of culture and the use of animals and plants products in their daily life still sort of persists. So there's this component, this cultural traditional thing that we need to sort of think about a lot. So one of the first study, which I thought was super interesting, it was published in PNAS 2015 by Patel et al. And none of these people work in the field of conservation, which is super interesting. But what they do is that they want to see where the key nodes in the illegal wildlife trade networks are based on online data, based on online seizure news, okay? So for a period of 3 years, they were mining, as in, computer science technique, and really sort of mining all this information that could get. And then the point really is to try to sort of identify where the networks are. So they did it for three products, three species, three group species: elephants, rhinoceros, and tiger, which are the very iconic when it comes to the illegal wildlife trade. And I'll just quickly explain this. So this is really a chord diagram. It's sort of like a trade flow diagram where this ribbon tells you from this direction means that, there are, the broader the band, the ribbon band, the more in this case, tiger products are being seized in the, at least reflected in the internet. So you can see that Nepal, India, Myanmar, these are the countries, and of course Laos, just sort of like, we're getting seizures into China. So China is drawing in all these illegal tiger products. And if you can remove all these key nodes, which means if you can erase them, you can sort of, through better enforcement or whatever method, whatever way, you can see that, the trade doesn't really exist. So it's very striking. It tells you that if you could actually hit the key nodes, potentially, things might be better. All right. So these are some of the things that I thought was really good, because I think for the first time, at least, it demonstrated to me the need to sort of draw on interdisciplinary sciences, right, or expertise to sort of address global issues like this. So it's really crucial. And you could do the same for CITES data. CITES is really the Convention on International Trade of Endangered Species. It is something that the world came up with in about in the 1970s. And what we did is that we realized that there's a lot of trade and species are getting endangered. So then we need to protect them. So we have all these regulations in place. And then we sort of decide which are the species that can be traded and how many. Depending on what their global status is. So it's a very simple mechanism, right? But enforcing it can be a nightmare. Okay, so this is the thing. So we have to take all those things in consideration. Anyway, if you looked at the whole pangolin trade globally, you can see where they go, at least using the data, and who's buying it, who's importing it, and then who's exporting it. Okay, so there's some kind of data that people can analyze, and really, at least from the very international perspective, very global perspective, you can see where things are going. Okay. And then back to Guangzhou, right? Let's go back to Guangzhou, and Guangzhou has one of the largest food pet market in China. And if you are somebody who wants to do illegal wildlife trade, this is like a must-see. And I remember when I first went there in 2013 was my first visit to Guangzhou. Before that was 30 years ago. I was seeing like the Amazonian macaw on sale there. It's like, on sale for like 10, this was like, possibly, a lot of money. But this was like some time ago. Now, you don't really see them anymore. So things are changing also, with enforcement, with, tip-offs, with the whole system in place. So we can see the whole market shifting. But there's a lot of very useful market data that one could actually look at to see how this market is actually shifting, right? And thankfully, people like, for instance, I know Vincent doesn't do Guangzhou. Vincent over there from Oxford Brookes University, who is one of the star in terms of illegal wildlife trade research. He's been going all over, especially Southeast Asia, so a lot of contribution. So he's been collecting a lot of market data. So I think so it's been very, very useful in sort of understanding, what's been traded outside of those legal channels. Okay, so these are the things that you actually have to go to the market to visit, to count, to see, all right? And you have to do it constantly over time, okay? And of course, we have evidence that, we have endangered species being sold, which is obviously illegal at that point. And then, obviously a more discreet way of advertising, essentially, is to sort of write on, styrofoam boxes and advertise. So these are, again, some of the species that are in demand in the market in Guangzhou. And more recently, actually last July, I think, probably, this is actually quite a big case, right? People who Dan probably knows about this, Dan Challenger, who works on pangolin, the world specialist on pangolin. So there was a major case of pangolin scale smuggling into Guangzhou, about 7 tons. That's a lot. It's worth about 74 million yuan. Quick conversion, it's about 8 million pounds. Okay? There's a lot of money in it, all right? So, which is why people are doing it, okay? And they're really sort of, so this is the situation that we are facing in China. So lots of things are coming in. The enforcement units will tell you that there's too much things coming in. For the most part, they don't have the resources to manage that. Okay, in addition to some of the other things that they have to pay attention to. So that is something that is crucial. That when we think about actions, policies, interventions, we have to consider that. Okay. So, what about the domestic situation? Do we know where things are going within China? Well, not many papers, so we don't know that much, actually, to be honest. This is one of the first, again, related to pangolin. And so what it does is that it did the same thing, but this time it's on the online media in the Chinese news, okay? Including the Chinese news, that is. There's a group over in Hong Kong, and what they did is that over a period of 6 years, they went online and then they looked at, what are the quantity, the destination within China where those trafficked pangolin sales are being seized. So then they create the map. The same kind of map that you see. I mean, it's very easy to sort of visualize a chord diagram, ribbons. And what you want to pay attention to is really, the one on the left, the one on your left, is really looking at the incidence, the number of cases that actually happen, okay? And then the one on the right is really looking at the number of the quantity, how much being smuggled, right? You can have lots of incidents, but if they are very, very low in numbers, it probably doesn't, it's not that big cases. So I want you to focus on the right, and you can see that these are cities in China, and Guangzhou is right here. So you can see how much seizure happened to Guangzhou, on the way to Guangzhou, okay? So again, using the same idea, where the keynotes are, we have this place called Fangchenggang, Guangzhou, and as well as Kunming, which is in Yunnan, okay? The southwestern province, which borders actually a lot of Southeast Asian country, and it's a very well-known area where, there's a lot of trafficking going on. And Vincent works a lot in there, around that area. So then my student Sifan, she came to me. She's my first PhD student, and I really started only a year ago. So she came to me and said, maybe we should really ask the question of, what is happening in China? Not just on pangolin. Let's try to do everything. Well, actually, that's not what she said. She said, let's try to do something. I said, let's try to do everything. That's normally what advisors do, right? So I said, why don't you look at the trends and look at the patterns and then try to figure out where the keynotes are within China. She's like, how do I do it? Do I have to go, whatever. So I had to go through, the news and whatever. I said, no. All you have to do is just get some help. okay? From somebody who knows how to do it, and then, let's try to do it together, right? So what she's doing right now, she's trying to sort of understand this consumption of wildlife trade. Wildlife, essentially, not just the illegal one, wildlife, in general, in China, right? Because, there is no illegal wildlife trade if there is no legal wildlife trade, right? There's no consumption of wildlife, there's no such issue. So we want to sort of understand what's going on, right? And you do that, and you can sort of track that over time, and it's in the news, it's everywhere, it's documented. You just have a really quick, efficient way to do that, okay? So the question that she has, and I think they're quite interesting, is really to look at, because societies shift, right? They used to eat shark fins, now they don't. Why? Okay, so cultural shift, society shift all the time. So what caused that shift and how significant that is something that I think is worth doing. All right, so I said, why don't you look at impact on intervention and trying to see whether it works or not? So that's one idea that we are thinking about right now, and obviously we are collating the data. And the other one is to really think about what's driving this IWT thing in China. What's driving? We know public culture in Guangzhou, we know because Guangzhou Cantonese eat everything, so we know that, right? But what's behind that, right? Because if you go to the north, they don't behave like that, right? In fact, they don't really even touch some of the stuff that we do. Well, I say we because I'm half Guangdong. I'm half from Guangdong, so I can call myself that. So the other research questions, which she eventually will get at, is if suppose we know what the norms are, what the subjective norms are, then perhaps there are actually ways to sort of change that, to influence the consumption patterns, one way or another. So she's trying to also study that. She's trying to study how norms could actually affect consumption behavior in the long run, right? So and whether the trends in online news actually they are changing. We know they are, but how are they changing? Why are they changing? Are actually questions that are interesting to us, and it's possible. It's possible because there are tons of information in the news. So if we can do that, then potentially we can actually help to identify the priority areas of conservation, right? As well as think about it could probably help in the intervention, and last but not least, maybe you can actually help to accelerate this social norm such that it affects more people really quickly. And that's really one of the more broader aims that I have when I build my lab, is really think about ways to accelerate this new, not really new, but sustainable behavior, because that's really the main direction. Illegal wildlife trade is just one piece of it, right? In general, you just have to be sustainable, okay? And good news is that China is thinking a lot about it, okay? Within China itself, they're thinking, what should we do, to balance this whole development and sustainability. Okay, so because they're getting a lot of environmental issues, the only way is to take this route. So they're investing a lot in it right now, as we speak. So, I kind of talk about this. The point being that, you can think of this as a timeline, and then you can think of like different key events which act as intervention, and then how that sort of change the behavior. If you could track them over time, it's actually worth looking. And then it's almost like an external shock to the system, okay? So then the drivers, you can probably have a framework like this, where you look at the different kinds of drivers, including the societal ones, as well as the geography itself. Society includes the tradition, the culture that we talk about, and of course, level of corruption, which is interesting and something that Chinese government is always interested to get rid of. I mean, it's a known issue, and it's something that sort of relates to the whole governance. Because if you can get rid of corruption, then I think it becomes a much more efficient system. The fact that the country is so big requires the central government to actually do that. So they are full on eradicating corruption, right? So how are we going to do it? Well, we're going to do what our predecessors have done, really sort of mine the literature, not really, references, but in this actually online news reports, where, you get so many of them. So we are developing methods with the help of, somebody over at the computer science department. And the professor assured me that the whole process is painless. And to prove his case, he was like, yeah, I'll give you my honor student to help you. That's all you need, by the way. And so far it's working out. So they're doing a very interesting collaboration right now, and we're having new data coming in. So the point is really to give you an example. I know it's in Chinese, but this is what it looks like. And in news report, and we're able to sort of extract all this information. Like, for example, this is Yunnan, and then there's 500 kilograms of pangolin scales that has been seized. Okay, so we're trying to get all this information, and when it happened, and so on and so forth. So trying to really sort of build a database and trying to understand what's been traded, not just pangolin, but everything else. Anything that we can find, we put it into this database. What is it for? Okay, for medicine, for food, and then how is it being transported? All right, so we're trying to put a database, and then afterwards, so obviously you try to extract our information, again, in an automated way. Having worked in the industry, I realized that there are so much more efficient ways to do things as opposed to going through the literature, as opposed to, so that is very crucial. And I think that's something that some of us will have to get used to. And I think it's always okay to ask for help. And I think, especially when you're trying to tackle such a big problem globally, so it's okay to work with someone else. Yeah. So eventually, what we want to do is try to understand what actually has changed in terms of demand. Okay, and we do that through the online news. So that's a project that's ongoing. Like I said, she just started. So hopefully, next time I can have some updates. If you invite me back again, that is. So I want to sort of draw on one of the key message, one of the key goals in the IWD conference in London, which is really about you got to bring on more people to work. It's not just academia. You got to partner up with NGOs. You're going to partner up with government agencies. And one of my go-to organization when I joined SYSU, State University in Guangzhou, is really WCS China. I've known them since 2013, and I thought they'd do marvelous work in Guangzhou. The fact that they have a team is dedicated to sort of monitoring the wildlife trade says a lot of the fact that Guangzhou is such a huge problem nationally as well as globally. So one of the latest things that I guess a lot of people are hearing now, hopefully if you're keeping up with the news, there's always some new stuff, and the demand, different products, the nature of it, why people use it, the reasons for using it changes all the time. Okay, and this might be something that's very familiar to Vincent, because he loves Mong La. He loves to do a lot of work there. I don't mean to keep bringing you up, but Vincent, you're so important in terms of what I'm saying right now. Southeast Asia is what Vincent actually spends a lot of his career in there, and we're thankful for all the data that he actually has collected and published. And one of the things that we are starting to see, we're actually starting to see this market in Mong La, in Myanmar, the market that sort of borders Myanmar and I believe Yunnan province, like elephant skins. We're done with ivory, so now we go for the skins. Okay, what do we use it for? We use it for everything. Okay, for medicine, which has basically no support for it. In the medicinal literature, in thousands years of history, for TCM practices, and then you have the skins. Now they're treating it like leather. Okay, that's one of the use. And of course, the better known one, tiger bone. These are the wild ones. Again in Myanmar, and then of course lots and lots of freshwater tortoises. Okay, they're all coming in from Southeast Asia, right? And they're all coming in, a lot of them coming in, right? Southeast Asia and around the greater Mekong region. Okay, these are the countries. So there's demand there, so everything goes in there. Right? That's the nature of trade, right? So WCS, thankfully, thought of this problem. And really what they did was that they start thinking about, why don't we just, see where things are based on what we know, and then we try to look at, where the trafficking routes are, where the key sources are, where the markets are. As you can see, a lot of things end up in Guangzhou, right? This is based on some of the data that they have collected. Right, so I'm not sure if most people know, but all right, let's just go. This is Southeast Asia right here, Southeast Asia, and then this is the Mekong River right here. Okay, it runs through China, right? Yunnan province actually starts from Tibet, comes down, and then Yunnan, and then it flows into some of these countries, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, and then they also realized that Malaysia is a problem, right? So we have some evidence, especially so we get a lot of anecdotal evidence, right, or maybe some seizure data, So they were able to sort of like get very detailed, some of the very detailed route that smugglers actually take. This is a lot of work by WCS over the years, and these are some of the great individuals at WCS which I have to sort of talk about. But I met them in 2013, and they have been one of the key driving forces as a team to sort of push forward this illegal wildlife trade research in Guangzhou and in China. So Li Shu, Scott, Colin, and Eileen, who is now actually in New York, so she's at the head office now. But the three of them have been working on this issue since I know them, which is not too long ago, 2013. They probably started way, way before. So this very dedicated individual came up with a plan, right, which is really to, why don't let's ask for some money. Let's do a research, let's get Ming involved, because he's in the university in China right now. So the whole point is really to sort of like look at and try to hit the supply chain, the entire supply chain from source to the market. That's the grand plan, okay? And then what we can do is that, we can try to see whether protection in source sites actually helps, okay? Because we have done research, and we have done research that are bits and pieces, because then, we do the protection, we try to eliminate the poachers, we try to up the enforcement, but we don't know what the market is doing, right? So this is for the first time they came up with this really ambitious research project, right? And they said, Ming, why don't you do this in China? I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it, all right? As usual, I said I'll do it. Why? Because, we're the one that can do something in China regarding reducing demand. Somebody needs to do it. Right? It's much easier for somebody who works in China to do it than somebody from outside China who wants to do it. Okay? That's one of the lessons I learned immediately, and one of the reasons why I go to China, because I really want to make a difference. Okay? So, I got involved in this, and the plan is really to sort of reduce preference for illegally sourced products. We're not saying you just cannot use illegal stuff. So we want to distinguish that. That's very crucial, okay? So, we borrowed some of the thinking, behind one of the report that Traffic EJ, is recently involved. Last year they published this, right? Deaf sponsored, yeah. And then reducing demand for illegal wildlife products. Coming up with some key suggestions as to what we can do. Okay, so we're going to try to do some of these things. Really make it evidence-based, and really make it intervention that one has to evaluate, see if it actually works or not, and then really come up with some creative way of communication, aside from the usual billboards, yeah? So we could get more personal. We could do a lot of things, but we need money. We need a lot of money. And we need really good people to help. So we engaged the service. We were like, what, do you want to join us? The Behavior Insights team. Anybody has heard of the Nudge team? The Nudge team in the Cabinet Office, this is spin-off, I guess, in some ways. So they're not independent now, but what they do is they really think of some clever, cost-saving ways to sort of make interventions work for the sake of policies, okay? Really interesting group of people. So we're fortunate to have Toby Park to be involved in it. And it's also a huge challenge for them, because this is the first time that they are trying to deal with something that's illegal behavior. So we got lucky, very lucky, okay? So thanks to the EU, so they are sort of funding our research project for the next 4 years to do exactly just that, okay? 8 million euros for the next 4 years, many countries, and then many NGOs. And we're going to try to sort of, for the first time, demonstrate, what we can do for the entire supply chain, hitting it at different points. In the end, trying to see if it actually makes a difference, what makes a difference, and then a big lesson learned for everybody. Okay? So, EU has its advantages. Sorry. Last but not least, this is really, our step out of China, at least from China perspective, and this is one of Amy's great idea, which is really Belt Road Initiative. How do we make it more sustainable? How do we green the belt? Right? China is very interested to do this right now. And there's many organizations in China developing multiple long-term initiatives to try to sort of figure issues like that out. Trying to evaluate what the risks are, in terms of going out. Be it traditional Chinese medicine, be it, infrastructure or anything. How to do it the right way, the sustainable way. I think it's one area that, we need a lot of expertise on. Because once you're out of China, everything is different, okay? So the government realized that, and we are trying to have a lot of joint initiative to get this project, and this will keep running for until 2050, if I'm not wrong. So it's a big long-term project, okay? And one that will affect a lot of developing countries, right? If you want to make a difference, you got to start from the beginning, right? You're going to get people involved. And that's what I learned also. You want policymakers to listen to you, tell them what you're doing from the start. Okay? Not after you publish something in Nature Science and tell them, look, people love it. Well, my colleagues like it a lot. But to be like, I wasn't involved in the thing. I don't know what you're doing. So that's often the reflection, the feedback that they give. So I'll end it by saying that, I hope that 2018 is a good year for us. The whole ivory market closed, and obviously this is 2019 now. I just realized that. I thought I said 2018. But doesn't matter. It's a good start. I just hope that in the coming years, we're going to have more and more people, Chinese researchers who are actually more interested in IWT research. Right? With that, I thank you all for not going to lunch and coming to my talk, and I'll take questions. Thank you.
So thank you, Min, for that really interesting talk and fascinating insight into how to work with China directly to tackle these really important issues, and how to make sure that when you're thinking about these issues, you start, as you say at the beginning, with so that you can actually have some impact. So we've got Clara coming around with a microphone, and please speak into the microphone when you talk so that it can be recorded. And we've got a question at the front here.
Thank you for coming to Oxford. I have a question on China's policy on wildlife trade, because last November, the Chinese government revised the old law on the regulation of tiger bone and rhino horns in the medical use. But in December, they changed the law again. So it's now illegal to use body bones and rhino horns in medicine again. So what do you think are the drivers behind this policy change?
Well, before I came to Oxford, I asked my senior colleagues what I should not say. I would just say that I wasn't involved in the process. I didn't know what happened, but I believe that I guess if somebody didn't know about it in November and then looked at it in December, like nothing changed. Yeah. So that's all I can say. I cannot say too much about this. Yeah. But we can obviously discuss this privately.
Hello, thank you very much for your talk. I'm absolutely not an expert of this topic, but I've been doing some work on waste and recycling. And one of the major issues I had was accessing the Chinese customs, whom you haven't mentioned in your talk. I was just wondering if, one, you've had any contact with them, two, if you consider collaborating with them, three, to what extent they would be open to collaborate with Sun Yat-sen University, for instance, and four, are they not also an important node that should be worked on, or where we should try to find solutions And I know that they've been very active in recent years through various operations that, for instance, National Sword. And so the narrative is that the borders are now much more controlled and monitored, and much less products, illegal products are able to enter the country. So if I could have your reaction on that.
That's a very, very good question. And is it waste, you said?
Well, I'm working on waste, but...
No, yeah. But like I said, it's a sustainability problem, right? So I work on sustainable issues. So I have a student who's working on recycling in China. It's a very interesting question. What I didn't mention is that, when I say agencies, yes, we consider customs. And we want to work with them. We will work with them, especially on the last project that I mentioned. You asked a lot of questions. Let's see if I can remember which one. Data, getting data from customs. I'm a Singaporean by birth. I have trouble getting data from Singapore customs. In general, I think it's just very hard to get data from customs unless they need you. That's always the case, right? If they need you, they'll say, yeah, what do you want? What do you want? Okay? So you have to demonstrate to them the value of the research of what you do and whether there's national interest, as with everything, to this. So it's a very, very, I think, quite simple thing. Once you sort of understand the logic, you could approach it the right way. But I know that it's something that we work on a lot, sustainable issues, recycling, so we have to do that. And there's some great recycling initiative in Guangzhou right now, which I'd love to talk to you more about it, and really sort of reduce waste. Waste is a huge problem, right? 1.5 billion people. Yeah. Think about it. Okay?
More questions? One at the back.
Yes, Alex. I know Alex because we spent time in Earth Institute.
Yes, old friends. So I guess I have a more general question about China, as you were alluding to, that within China, the importance of working within China, and that within the government, you're seeing that there is this interest to be more sustainable, to tackle these issues, but maybe that's less evident externally. And I just, for other efforts that I've been involved with, say sustainability certification, the assumption is that China, or say companies that trade with China, are not concerned about these sustainability issues because X, Y, Z. And I wonder if that's more of a cultural decision, say for the government to wait until they've solved a problem before being open about being concerned about it, or I don't know if you could comment on that at all.
Good, very good question. And it's something that I struggled with in the beginning, but it became very clear very quickly. For those of you who spend a lot of time looking at the or watching news and watching the foreign, I guess the foreign, what do you call that? The foreign department take news conference. It's very clear. One of the things that China do not do is to be super proactive in issues. It's got to do with the culture. And I talk about this with many of my colleagues. It's like, like only the good stuff go out, bad stuff don't go out. Okay? So it's one of the things that's quite consistent with the Chinese culture tradition over time. It was interesting that you brought up the whole certification thing. I would just say this. In China, there are more and more people the society is changing, and they are more and more concerned about what they eat, what they buy. But when it comes to food, one of the things that people really, really pay attention to is actually food safety. Right? We have a lot of issues with, stuff in food. So it's not certification per se, but it's super interesting. When I first went to China, one of those wet markets, supermarket, any market that you have, anything that's fresh produce, what you see is you have on the wall, right? You can see, they will tell you specifically where the poultry comes from and what the level of, what the safety level is. I don't think I've seen that anywhere else, because you assume that it's safe, right? That thing. So it's not really sustainability certification per se. It's more like safety right now. So things like that, the society cares a lot about, and they're worried. But I can also see this whole organic movement happening, especially in big cities like Guangzhou, which is like, we used to be third. Now we are the fourth largest in China. Okay, so this will only get more. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so we had a question at the back, another one at the back. Do you still want to ask it?
Oh, okay.
Yes. And then we might have time for Melitas as well.
Thank you so much for your talk. I'm wondering if you have any sense on whether the younger generations in China have less of an appetite for these wildlife products, or if the traditional uses are being passed down.
It's a very interesting question. I think it's one that people keep saying, right? People say, the new generation will be different, and then things would change, right? But it's been thousands of years. Okay, so what does it mean, right? Surely, there is a huge momentum, there's a huge inertia that's very, very hard to lose, right? And I think it will take a lot to sort of diminish that effect, right? And I think, generation passing on this knowledge, and I think it's one of the things that would be interesting to do research on. And actually, we are hoping to get to try to see, gain some insights from the project that Amy is sort of working on right now on TCM, because TCM is one thing that you pass on over generation, right? And whether it gets adopted, the next generation, there's a lot of reasons why it does or it doesn't. So that I think is worth investigating. But I can tell you this: if you go to a hospital, it's traditional Chinese medicine, and then, a little window that's Western medicine. Right? And if you go to the pharmacies, it's over the counter traditional Chinese medicine, and then you do find some, I don't know if you can find paracetamol there, but something like that. So there is a lot of these sort of things, you just have to go to China to see.
Okay, we'll finish off with Melita's question.
A quick question. Thanks for a fantastic talk. Really useful for those of us working in conservation. I work in marine conservation in East Africa. So I'm curious to know if you or your team are looking at any marine species and things like trade in shark fins, sea cucumbers, bêche de mer. I'd really like to know if you are, and would love to collaborate.
I think marine products are very interesting and very crucial. As with the plants, Amy would love that I mentioned that there's also this huge problem on orchid trade in China that I think somebody has to study. Fortunately, there is somebody in addition to Amy who's studying it, but we need to know more about it. The marine side, we know that people are looking at seahorses. There's a great team over at UBC. You probably know her. And they have some really good data, maybe not in China, but I know definitely in Thailand. But in general, seahorses, sea cucumber. I think if somebody wants to do it and has expertise to do it, I think we have some. We probably could find some ways to actually work together. I'm open to that because I think again it's a sustainability issue. It doesn't matter what. It's just what product is a sustainable issue. We just start to look at product or ranges of product at one time, right? So the whole idea is really to sort of remove this need for illegal stuff, for endangered stuff, for protected stuff, and sort of transition to something else, alternative, right? How you get there is what we're trying to do.
Well, that's a great note to finish on, I think. So I just want to thank Ming again, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.